Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV with your host, Kyle Ellicott. We are today going to be speaking about early stage venture capital and seed investments. What's happening as we come to the end of 2021, but also what to prepare for looking ahead at 2022. Yesterday, we talked about decentralized autonomous organizations, or DAOs, and how those were impacting the venture landscape. We've also got a ton of hot topics from quantum and artificial intelligence to fintech and education tech to talk about as well as we look ahead into 2022. And I'm joined by my outstanding co-hosts and friends of the VCTV family to share their thoughts and insights together about what has happened again in 2021 and what to prepare for 2022. Big thank you to the Token team and to Hasmic for making today's episode possible. That being said, Jason, kick us off with a short introduction.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, Kyle and Latoken. Always great to be here. I've personally been involved in the entrepreneurial and investment space for 20 plus years in the Chicagoland area and really throughout the greater Midwest of the U.S. Right now, I run Propellant Ventures. It's a seed stage venture capital fund. We invest in early seed and pre-seed deals. That's our sweet spot across B2B industries located in the Midwest region of the U.S. Industries we like are health tech, fintech, Edtech, supply chain, future work. These are some of the industries that really accelerated their growth and investment over the last 2 years. So we're excited about what's happening, and there's a lot more things we can discuss, but there's a lot of great industries out there.
Absolutely, including education, which I know is a big focus of yours as well. So I want to talk about the future of education in 2022 in just a moment. But before we get there, Adrian, quick little introduction for everybody.
Hello, everybody. Happy to be back here in Latoken and VCTV Familyverse. My name is Adrian Niculescu. I'm a serial entrepreneur and investor. I'm a sales, marketing, and business development guy. Very, very passionate about the world of startups and to see on paper the companies of tomorrow. I'm also part of Latoken's growth team. Very happy to be here today and contribute.
Wonderful. Happy to have you as well, Adrian. Last but not least, the Grand Master of Artificial Intelligence himself, ladies and gentlemen, Gary Fowler. Welcome back. A little introduction for those who may not know.
It's great to be here, Kyle. Great to see it to come into the close of the year. Some friendly and familiar faces. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm a serial entrepreneur investor. I've been involved in 17 startups, 2 unicorns. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion. And also Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company. As you know, I love AI and quantum computing because everything around us, we've got challenges with data and infobesity. So great to be here today.
Data. It is going to be probably one of the second biggest topics of 2022. Being the first, I'm going to call out to deep tech that, Gary, I know you've talked a lot about here on VCTV, and that's quantum and quantum computing. Can you share a little bit of what you've seen in 2021, but more importantly, what we have to look out for in the year ahead in 2022 around early stage investments within quantum?
Yes, so, this has been an incredible year. In fact, this whole time during the pandemic, at the beginning of the pandemic, Kyle, we didn't even think about how quantum computers and AI could be used for drug discovery because of the need and desire and the variations of COVID coming out. Some of the drug companies use quantum computers and AI to do drug modeling. So we saw the first real incredible applications. And then as people have talked about it more and more, imagine a computer that's 158 times faster than the fastest supercomputer today. And if we take that in perspective, what would take 10,000 years on a supercomputer would take 200 seconds on a quantum. And now the Chinese said they have systems that hundreds of times faster than that. But the challenge we have around us each and every day is data and making sense of that data. In our worlds here today, we have about 300,000 items in our personal cloud. There are about, in 1996, there were only 257,000 websites. That number doubles every year. So each one of us here within the next 5 years will have 10 million items. It's about how do we make sense of that data? Where do quantum computers come in? Quantum computers come in, as I said, in areas like drug discovery. Anywhere we have massive amounts of data that we can use artificial intelligence with quantum computers to make sense of that data. Now, is it right for any type of application? No. Is it broadening from where it was before? Yes. Are people investing in quantum companies? Yes. Do we have, you're starting to see investments in things like chips, new quantum computers that are starting to be reduced in terms of the size. They have traditionally been in research institutions and in governments. Now you're starting to see that move forward with companies like Google, Microsoft, IBM, some of the larger companies that are starting to deploy those computers. So we're really in the dawn of a new era. You know, our lives are going to change. I wrote an article about the teleportation of quantum particles and how we're going to revolutionize communications, the teleportation of quantum material. So we're really at a dawn of an entirely new era, because now our lives are about data. Now our lives are about making sense of that data. And now our lives are about using AI and quantum computers to be able to help us chart a path forward.
Gary, speaking of data, Jason, I want to come to you next. I mean, thinking about data and how we can leverage data for, new products, new services, or maybe improve learning as well. Talk to us a little bit about education and Edtech, what you see here going into 2022 and how data might play a very big role in the early stage investment landscape around education.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about it that way. Edtech in education itself has really become necessary to be really online for educators, for students, for teachers. I mean, that's been accelerated, put that way. So it's part of the norm now, and still in person is pretty important for students, especially on the social aspect of things, but they need to be ready to do things online. So schools are finally caught up to that. They're ready to do it. And in particular, one of our investments, they bring different disparate sources together of data that the educational leaders use to evaluate how their teachers are doing, how their students are doing, that they can ultimately use to get additional funding support for their schools. So bringing all these different data sources together, understanding it in a dashboard environment to make a real-time strategic decision. So I think that type of data is extremely important to understand what is happening across the entire school ecosystem. To make strategic real-time decisions is pretty important. And so I don't think that's been happening as much lately, because schools are not all up to date with technology. And this is, now I'm talking about high schools, but this can apply to colleges and even corporate ed tech as well. But on the secondary education, higher education, there's definitely a need to improve teaching around data, looking at data more than probably in the past.
Yeah, and Adrian, coming to you next, you talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing in fintech and blockchain. When we talk about data, that is also another sensitive subject around the protection of data, the usage of data, but bringing in blockchain as well and other areas that you're focused on. What are you seeing looking ahead at 2022 that may reshape some of these industries?
We'll start with the thesis of managing teams working from home everywhere in the world. You can't manage some such teams without good data. Good data will show you if the living organism you are managing works well or not. Going into fintech and blockchain, by the way, I've published a poll on LinkedIn if Mr. Mark Zuckerberg should be allowed to build Metaverse or not. And most of the people said yes, more than 50%. I see this parallel Metaverse world, which is built like crazy by different startups, different companies. And I believe it will be a real parallel universe, and a second layer of our life will move there, including our wealth. Even we may talk about NFTs, or we may talk about other things, but our wealth will have an equivalent in the metaverse world, and also our data will create clusters in that space. So basically, I'm a Gemini, so I'm like a dual person in many things. But of course, I'm controlling this duality. But we will become really dual people. We'll have our real life and our robotic life in the metaverse, and many people will lose their minds, I believe, because will not be able to make the difference between one and the other. So it can be a very dangerous thing, I would say.
So let's take a second and talk a little bit about the metaverse. Metaverse is probably one of the biggest key terms, if you will, and themes for the end and second half, but really the Q4 of 2021. As we look ahead to 2022, is this an area of key investment where all these industries that each of you focus on are going to start to converge, and we are going to look at them in a more digital sense? Gary, what are your thoughts there?
100%. I mean, 99.9. That's where we're going. Like it or not, good or bad or indifferent, it was set a long time ago, and as we started to move into this I almost said alternate reality, but probably an alternate reality, we're going to start to do things a lot differently. And I was just on a call with the one of the former top persons from one of the big four in digital transformation, a partner, and we were talking about how the world's changing. And you're right. I mean, we're going to go down through that, and companies that embrace it and understand that there's going to be ways that we can transact business. I just was on a call with a company that makes wheelchairs that are VR and AR enabled wheelchairs. So people kind of like, what was that movie, Avatar, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like that, like seriously like that. And so they can have a different kind of life in this new metaverse to be able to do things differently and learn to walk, and in some cases, and transact and have a sort of a normal life. So it's coming. And the companies that embrace it are going to be companies that are going to be there for the future, because as we know, opportunity is not equally distributed around the world, and we need to be able to do that in all kinds of different ways. This gives us a way to do it.
Agree, Jason.
Yeah, so it's interesting. As you may remember, we invested in a virtual events platform earlier this year, and we've been using it since April of 2000, so a year and a half, even before we made the investment. And they are rebranding as a Metaverse company, and so it's virtual, your avatar based, interacting with business professionals, and so. So you're right. That is continuing to evolve, and it's here to stay. So obviously, Nike, you can buy shoes in the metaverse. I mean, there's a lot of different applications for that, but they saw this coming, and they realized they need to position themselves in the metaverse to continue to grow the company. So we can say we are early investors in a metaverse company before we knew it was a metaverse. But the fact is, I agree that it's only going to accelerate. Facebook's, proclamation about or changing their name to Meta really, I think, brought a huge, for a lot of people, it brought awareness, even though people in the space already knew about it, but they brought a lot of awareness. So I definitely think it's going to impact a lot of things. So.
Yeah, and also speaking of Nike, add on Adidas as well, right? Both Nike and Adidas are going all in many respects into the metaverse. I also just read today about a company I'm going to be talking about a little bit later called Ready Player Me, who just raised a nice sizable round, and with the idea that you have multiple metaverses but one avatar, and being able to create that avatar-based experience in multiple metaverses, and being able to purchase digital fashion or digital clothes or items and goods, etc., for your avatars will definitely be of something, I think, as well in the second half of 22 moving into 23. But I do believe as well gaming will play a big role bringing us in to that metaverse and bringing the next billion into the digital asset space as a whole in 22. So it's going to be a big year. Adrian, with that being said, closing thoughts today. Your big, bold prediction for an area in terms of early stage investments people need to be on the watch for in 22. And where can everyone find you online?
Of course, Metaverse is becoming already a hype word. I'm a marketing guy, so I'm always looking at that. But let's see, okay, what the big brands are doing. They want to find the sweet spot to enter Metaverse. As you said, we'll create shoes for your avatar. Maybe will appear some gyms to make your avatar become fitter. It would not be impossible. What I would look at would be at the best projects where the business fundamentals will be there, so they will be able not just to survive but also to thrive when the hype of metaverse will be replaced by something else, because it will happen, will be another world, will be another variation. So the most important thing to look at the teams, at the concept, and if it can survive when the hype will not be as big as is now. I can be found on LinkedIn and of course on VCTV. Thank you very much for having me here today, and don't forget to educate yourself and to do your own due diligence very, very deeply.
Thank you, Adrian. Jason, same question to you. Area of interest people need to be on the watch for in 22, and where can everyone find you online?
Yeah, I think still some of the industries that are continuing to accelerate that are not going anywhere is health tech and fintech, some of the areas of interest for us. So there's going to continue to be innovation in those areas. So it's going to continue to infiltrate our lives even more. So I'd continue to keep an eye out for that. I can be found at propellant.vc on LinkedIn, or you can email me, jason@propellant.vc.
Wonderful. Last but not least, Gary, area of interest for 22, and where can everyone find you?
Yeah, so areas of interest, of course, AI and unsupervised AI in particular, companies that are dealing with this data, as we've talked about, and to be able to make sense of it. And more importantly, not make sense of it, but actually do something about it. We're going to see those companies come up more and more. We're going to see quantum start to go from just a concept that people hear the word, but really something that enters our lives. We're going to see the blurred lines from the virtual world to the real world start to become more and more blurred. And it's going to be interesting to see how we start to transact business and carry our lives on. And as Adrian has said, another world in a sense. So I'm excited about it. These are great times. We've moved forward over the last couple of years through this COVID, and because of the ability to go online, because of the ability to have virtual reality, because of online conferences, et cetera, that 3 years ago we didn't really think about, but now it's become a reality. You can reach me, Gary Fowler, on LinkedIn. Reach me on Twitter. Check out my shows, GSD Presents, The Founders Report on VCTV, and also VC Task Force, Gary's Picks.
Wonderful. Gary, Jason, Adrian, thank you all very much for sharing your thoughts and insights around the early stage venture landscape and the industries that we spoke about today. To our audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard, like, share, and subscribe on today's episode. Also, make sure you reach out to Gary, Jason, Adrian, and myself. We'd all love to hear from you. Remember to add context where you heard us, where you met us, and what you would like to continue the conversation about. Big thank you to the LaToken team and to Hasmic for making today's episode possible. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Until tomorrow, everyone have a wonderful day, and we'll see you soon. Take care, everybody.